Vice President Harris has emerged as a top contender to replace President Biden on the Democratic ticket after his historic decision to withdraw from the race. But the move has left some wondering if it's a little too late in the race for her to beat Donald Trump come November. So for more on Harris's chances, I want to bring in Wisconsin Democratic Congressman Mark Pocan. He is the co-chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus PAC as well. Thank you so much for joining us, Representative. So first off, you spoke to Vice President Harris yesterday. What did you all discuss?
Well, she's ready. She's ready to win Wisconsin, and Wisconsin obviously is one of those pivotal states. I would argue Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania are on the top of the list. And having her as our nominee with energy to run around the state and do all the campaigning and show that contrast with really an old, tired Donald Trump, who his appointments to the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade. And now we are an 1849 law in Wisconsin when it comes to abortion. I like that contrast. I want her to go out there and talk about that difference. And we feel like we're in a really great place to be in the blue column in November.
So you identified one area that Kamala Harris is actually particularly strong in when we're talking about abortion rights that you think your voters would find appealing. What else do they need to hear from Kamala Harris? What else do they need to hear from the Democratic Party?
Well, now this is more of a debate about the future, right? At least from the Democrats. A lot of people at the debate didn't care for bluntly either candidate. And now one of those candidates is still in the race. And the Republican Party probably has to do some internal assessment. I'll leave that up to them, what they're going to do. But for us, we're going to talk about the Democratic agenda, which the public in general agrees with us on most every issue, and contrast that to Trump's Project 2025, which abortion is one part of it. But there's a lot of planks that'll have really negative effects on families in Wisconsin and across the country. And I think talking about those issues, talking and showing the youthful energy and the future that this country can have under a President Harris, I think that contrast is really going to stand out in my state.
So, as we mentioned earlier, you're the co-chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus PAC. The organization put out a statement endorsing Harris and saying in part that you believe that Harris can beat Donald Trump. But you know what some of the polls are suggesting, that, in fact, she's a little bit behind Donald Trump in these sort of neck-and-neck polls. Now, clearly these polls were taken before she was even endorsed, before President Biden stepped aside, before she was endorsed by the president. But why do you believe she can defeat Donald Trump?
I'll tell you, there are so many people that I've talked to that are concerned, again, when Joe Biden and Donald Trump were the two candidates, about both candidates and what the future meant. And they certainly didn't look to any of the third parties as having anyone who's viable or rational. So there was this consternation about the election in general. Now they have a real choice. Someone who I think is outstanding, is able to be and ready to be president. She's been a great vice president. And that difference is really what makes, I think, the biggest clear choice for people when they look at someone who can address issues they agree with, show that ability to actually lead on those issues, and not just fall back on, some extreme agenda that, Donald Trump and his buddies have with Project 2025. That is going to connect awful lot.
So, as you know, one of the criticisms of the Democratic Party over the last several cycles, I guess, is that there was a push for particular individuals to lead the ticket that didn't always turn out to be a successful push, right? And so here we're in crunch time. You've come out and endorsed Kamala Harris. The president has endorsed Kamala Harris. No one wants to see a coronation, though. How do you feel about the idea of some sort of primary competition in the interest of transparency and in the interest of representing the wants of the voters?
Look, we're living through history, right? We've got a few weeks to a convention, a little over 100 days to a November election. So I think we're all going to kind of live through this together. But I think the fact that you're seeing everyone coalesce behind the vice president says something. People from all different parts of the Democratic Party are very quickly realizing that she is the best candidate. And other people, and we have a great bench on the Democratic Party, they're also realizing that she's the best candidate for the moment. And I don't know if anyone's going to step up to do this. I really believe that Kamala Harris is the right person at the right time. And that's why you're seeing all different parts of the Democratic Party come together across all different geographic parts of the country and say that she is the proper person to be the candidate.
There have been several different names floated around as a possible VP candidate. I don't know if you have a name that you like or not. If you do, I'd love to hear it. If not, what type of vice presidential candidate do you think would pair well with Kamala Harris?
Sure. I think most people would agree you're probably not going to be the next president if you don't win states like Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. So I just want someone who connects with our middle class, working class voters that we have in states like Wisconsin, people who think about economics, their family's economic condition at the kitchen table every day, and someone who can talk to the upper Midwest in that common sense way that we are. If you give me a candidate like that, along with someone like Kamala Harris, who, by the way, lived for a while in Wisconsin in her youth, I think you're going to have a team that can campaign across the state and do extremely well.
Congressman Mark Pocan, thank you so much.
Sure. Thank you.